Now, anyone watching our videos previously will have probably noticed this car in the background, and it's one that we've had hanging around the workshop for a little while now, because it's kind of one of those jobs that started off as something small and just sort of snowballed into much, much more. Now, this is a cool little kind of show car build that was finished around 2007, I think. It was initially built in Las Vegas, of all places. I believe for a UK customer, because it's right-hand drive. But yeah, originally this came in for us to just do the air suspension on it. But we ended up doing absolutely everything, because we found a lot of problems with a lot of the old kind of suspension setup. The front end was crazy. It was like a weird A-arm system with bags, but no shock absorbers and a tiny little steering rack. None of it really worked properly, so we ended up basically pulling everything apart and doing a full pan-off rebuild on this car. And we're getting to a point now where we're actually kind of close to getting the thing running and driving. So the wiring's completed. We did a full loom in there, which you can't really see it now. It's behind all of this air ride stuff. Rather than having a normal tank, it's got this spun aluminium one and like a flat panel here, because there's no room underneath that panel there. Because if you look in here, you'll see it's got a pretty strange pedal assembly. So rather than having a normal upright pedal box like a typical Beetle would, it's kind of like a traditional normal car pedal box, which means that all the cylinders for the hydraulic clutch and the brakes are all right here underneath where the fuel tank would be. So this car has a spun alley tank now instead, which looks quite nice. Air management's gone in, so we've got a polished tank, we've got nice Viair compressor, twin needle gauges and paddle valves here. And in the back end, Jesse's working on it at the moment, getting this chrome bad boy up and running. So I just discovered that the distributor drive gear is in 90 degrees out, so trying to get that out now so we can retime it properly.
What was that? Fucking exhaust. Fucking dirty flames. Oh, fucking good thing my leg right there.
I get to see that now.
It was slow-mo footage. We go.
Go for it, mate. Oh, aye. Man, that looks a lot better than the old tyres. So the front end on this car is on 17s and the back end is on 18s. And we swapped the front tyres out yesterday for something a bit smaller. And it worked out nice, but the back, yet to do that because we haven't decided what we're going to do. Because I think the size that's on there now is probably going to work. Just if you look, it sits nice. We don't want it much lower than this because of the exhaust anyway. What's up guys, welcome back. So I like to kind of start these videos now with a little bit of a rundown of something we've been working on for a customer. So you've just seen us working on this yellow car here. Now we do a lot of work for different customers, but of course on these videos we kind of focus on the stuff that we're building. So yeah, with that, we're going to carry on now with the Oval. I actually had something fairly cool turn up the other day, which I'm happy about, which means we can now actually get the engine finished. And it's this here. This is a dynamotor. So this is a small unit alternator that fits where the dynamo on a 30 horse engine used to go. So that is kind of a key to us getting this actually 12 volt converted, which means we can obviously run the air suspension, run more modern electronics, maybe a radio, brighter bulbs, faster wipers, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we can get that now, get that in the engine, get the engine in the car, and then actually carry on with the rest of the suspension. All we've really got left to do now in that respect is the rear suspension, which is not really that difficult. And then we've got the management, which I've got to do a little bit of messing around there because we don't actually do a bolt-in front management base for this car, for an earlier car like this. So we've got to get one of our later ones, modify it, make it fit, and then we've got somewhere to start. But yeah, nice and simple. We've got the rest of the suspension to build. We've got the engine to fit once we get the dynamo, alternator even fitted, and we can go from there. So let's get to it, get that alternator fitted to our 30 horse engine, get the engine back in, and then get the suspension on. And we can finally, maybe, drive this car again, because it's been stuck on my ramp now since about October time, and I'm fed up of looking at it. In its current state anyway. It's actually very nice to look at. I just really want to drive it again. Had the original starter here rebuilt as 12 volts. This is a specific 30 horse starter motor, or at least an early style one, as the teeth are different on this to a later normal 12 volt model. So finally, our 57 has an engine all over again, and doesn't it look absolutely beautiful? It's amazing to think this is just 2 years shy of 70 years old. It's come up really, really nice. I mean, we've done a load of powder coating, rebuilt a couple of bits here and there, done the original style tar boards in the engine bay with some more sound deadening underneath those as well. I'll paste a few pictures in now of what it looked like before. And it was okay. It wasn't really messy. It was a nice, fairly clean looking engine, not particularly oily or anything like that. It ran okay, but it just wanted a little bit of love. I mean, it smoked a little bit when it was cold, and I think down to just the bores were a little bit scored up, a little bit worn. So now we've got the new bells and pistons in there, the heads have been cleaned up. We've got a new gasket kit, so any oil leaks will have been taken care of. Exhaust has just been cleaned back up. It's the one that came off of it originally. I basically had it sandblasted and painted it. It's had some nice J-tubes fitted, because we're getting rid of the heaters for the air ride stuff. So now we're actually getting ready to give this thing a crank over. But first, we should probably put a little bit of oil in it. And what better than this stuff? We make this one for stock engines, we make a Spec 2 that we call for modified stuff, and then a Spec 3 for sort of the high performance, high power stuff. So this one, of course, being a tiny little 30 horse engine stock specification, is getting our regular Spec 1 1030. Great. So, I'd love to tell you that I started it right away and there was no issues whatsoever, but I'd be lying because actually I'd made a blunder and I'd put these leads on, not the wrong way around, but I'd put them on 180 out. So when I tested the top dead on number 1, I was actually top dead on number 3 because I hadn't got the valve covers off. So yeah, it took me about half an hour to get it started, scratching my head thinking, no, I can't, I've done it wrong. But yeah, sure enough, I've done it wrong. Also, as well, when we first started it, we had a few issues. It was a bit stumbly. It wasn't quite revving right. You couldn't just sort of pull the throttle and it rev up like it should. And what I found is the pump jet nozzle in the top of the carburetor here, which is all this mechanism on the side that sprays a little bit of fuel in as you sort of put your foot on the accelerator. That was partially blocked. So it wasn't really working right. So as you press the throttle, it sort of, it didn't spray properly. It sort of sprayed to one side and it was like partially blocked with just a bit of crap on the bottom of the carb. So we whipped this off, cleaned it up, put it back on, did the timing, set the carb. So it runs kind of about 95% at the moment, and there's a little bit more tuning to do perhaps once we actually get it on the floor, on the road, get some load on it, get it tested. It's a little bit stumbly sometimes when you press the accelerator, and I think maybe because we've got a few new components in there, the barrels and pistons obviously need wearing in, everything needs to sort of settle a little bit. So yeah, once we get it on the road, we'll give it the final tune, get it absolutely perfect. And one thing I noticed as well, on the topic of the 12 volt conversion we spoke about earlier, is this auto choke element here is still a 6 volt one. So I have actually got over here a new 12 volt choke element. So I've got that. Over here, I've got a load of bulbs, which we've got to swap out. I've got like the tail lights, some of the headlights here, the P45 ones, the dashboard bulbs, because they're all 6 volts still. And then also have this for the wiper motor. Now this is a 12 volt conversion armature. I've never fitted one of these before, but I know this goes in the wiper motor and basically converts it to working on 12 volt. Because at the moment, I've done the bare minimum on the wiring loom that was required to fit the 12 volt battery. But a few things I've just kind of left so I can convert them as we go along. So I'm going to do all that now. So one thing I've noticed is all the bulbs kind of still work. They're just very, very bright, like these dashboard bulbs here, obviously 6 volt ones. Now they've got 12 volt going through them, they're very, very bright. Although one thing we do have working, how lovely is that? So I'm so happy with those. They flash as well, which I didn't realise they did. I think these are an aftermarket one, they're not an original Volkswagen, and I think because they're 12 volt they have a sort of flasher unit built into them. So it doesn't flash on here, but it flashes on there. So these were 12 volt anyway. They were running through some sort of step up thing to make them work with the 6 volt system on the car. Pulled that out, wired them up to factory style, and they seem to be good. But obviously next we've got to do the wiper motor thing, which is in here, up there somewhere. I mean, the wiring is a bit of a mess at the moment. We'll go around and tidy it all up. Dashboard bulbs, headlight bulbs, which the side light bulbs all work, but the headlight bulbs themselves popped the moment I turned them on. So they want swapping out. And of course then, at the back end, we've got 12 volt bulbs in these, which is only one bulb in those anyway. We need a 12 volt bulb for the Pope's nose, for number plate light, and then of course a 12 volt element for this. So we got this apart, and I don't really know what I'm looking at here, but this bit looks like that bit. So I'm presuming this bit goes where that bit was. But I do know that this is a wrong wiper motor. So this is typically like a 58, 59 onwards wiper motor. And of course this is a 57. I think this has got the original wiper switch, but this of course being a later motor, I think would have like a self-parking function amongst other things. So the wiring was a little bit messed up. So I'm gonna basically just start again with the wiring, look up some diagrams and stuff. But first thing, I think I'm gonna give this a go first. So yeah. Huh. Wow. That's really easy. Okay, I never expected it to be quite that simple. Well, what an absolutely beautifully designed piece of equipment. And somebody's already been here before, because these are Wolfsburg West branded spindles. So while it's out, I want to grease a few of the joints a little bit. No, I don't. So we had a problem. I put all this in and it didn't work. Nothing worked. Tried absolutely everything, went through all the wiring, put power directly to a motor, absolutely nothing, dead. But it did seem to be having a bit of a draw. And now Joe here, master mechanic. And we've been sort of through it together, and he noticed, not me, but this new armature here is really tight in here. So it spins kind of freely to a point, and then it stops and it grabs, and it's really hard to turn. Like it gets really grippy.
If
We stick the old one back in. It's really a bit magnetic.
Put that one in there.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Fraser bird.
Absolutely lovely. And I think that's got to be our problem. And if you look at this here, this new part, it's got some sort of like green paint on it. It all seems to be on, in places, it seems to be on the outside where it shouldn't be. And we think that is what's making it catch. So this should spin nice and freely like this, which it does at some point.
You can also hear it grabbing as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll come through.
And it just stops, and you can see, it's really hard to see, it's just catching. So my first thought was to stick it in the lathe.
Get the lathe out!
Get the lathe out. However, I think probably spin it up in a drill, hold a bit of sandpaper on the outside, just clean that paint off first and see if that sorts us. But yeah, nightmare. 6-volt one.
Simply lovely.
Right, take two. Oh.
It's as if we know what we're on about.
Oh, beautiful.
There you go. Right, we'll put it back together, put some voltages to him, and see how he goes.
Lovely.
That's perfect.
Lovely.
Beautiful. Right.
Need to tighten that up though. That's a little bit wobbly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Result. I'm going to put it in the car now. It's not going to work again.
Back to the car.
Yep. So the car is now completely 12 volt converted, which means we can move on to the actual point of this video, which is carrying on with the air suspension. So this piece here, the floater, you saw me fit that earlier. I've welded some captive nuts to it and drilled the inner wing just down here. So this isn't normally how we fit these, but we don't actually make one of our floater mounts for an oval yet. There's something that will come in time, but for now, this seemed like a good solution for fitting it. So there's small holes drilled there, bolt it from the inner wing through, and that'll be perfect. And that brings us to the next bit, which is air management. So it's the switches, the gauges, the stuff that you use to control the air suspension, basically. And I would use one of our normal little management mounts normally, because they look quite smart. However, I really don't want to fuss up this dashboard too much. It looks lovely, it's very nice and traditional, it's very nice and kind of original looking. I don't want to whack one of our air ride things under here, I think it'd look a bit stupid. So, what we're going to do instead, because this car came without a glove box liner, and trying to find a glove box liner for a right-hand drive Oval Beetle is a bit of a pain, we're just going to make a little panel that fits here instead. So I'll be able to close this away, ignore that the air suspension's even there altogether, open it back down again, control the air suspension, and then close it. And then we're going to have the control side of things taken care of. And here's the finished item. Looks a little bit rough. I'm going to clean it up, paint it a little bit. It's basically just a little panel that will hold both gauges, all 4 paddle valves, and this fits quite nicely, like just like that. And if you look here, the little holes that you used to take with little rubber stoppers are now being utilised to actually hold it in place. So what I'm going to do is use like a little M6 button head, just screw that through there, both sides. I kind of close that one a little bit off, and then that'll do. So I think that's going to be nice and accessible from the driver's side. Hide it away, job's a good one. So yeah, manual management yet again for this car. We used to use kits like Airlift 3P, digital kits like V2 3P, stuff like that in the past a bit more often. But now we find ourselves using and recommending manual kits more. Mostly just because they're more reliable, but also because they're a little bit more user-friendly. Having just one switch per corner, up and down, it's very simple. It works nicely. It's very sort of, you get a bit of feedback through it. It's easier to set precise heights. It's easier to run lower. So that's the reason why we do manual management. I do like 3P on the right car, same as AccuAir stuff, that can be fantastic. But for this car, for pretty much everything that I build now, or everything that we build for ourselves, manual is what we tend to go for. before we go ahead and get that in the car, you'll have noticed, of course, that it is a twin compressor setup. So with the twin compressors, you can just run the two wires, the two lengths of wire that come with the compressors from the battery to the front. But what we tend to do is just run one fat cable with a maxi fuse on the end. And of course, a grommet. So I've drilled a little hole here. Need to hoover around that, cleaned it up a little bit, deburred it, and stick that grommet in it, run the line through there, underneath the carpets, which I pull back a little bit just so I can get to it, round and straight to the battery. And that's all the lines that we need to install before we put the floater in. So this is the lines here for each four corners, or each of the four corners even. We go down here, through the grommet that I drilled in bulkhead, down, underneath, obviously to the front shocks, and to the rear, which isn't installed yet. The only thing I've got to connect yet is this connector here underneath, which is the air feed. That links directly to this one on the management. And of course, when we drop the management in, we've got to wire it up with that big fat red cable. And this here, which is our feed for the ignition. And once that's bolted down, it earths through the body of it itself. I just need to clean up some points of contact on the body so it earths properly. Then we can actually get this bolted in, and it's pretty much ready to go. Right here, we've got the normal suspension kit that you've seen us fit several times over now. Apart from this one, because obviously this is an earlier car, a 1957, this has the early style top mounts, which have basically got this straight part here, rather than it being angled like on a normal later car. However, contrary to that, we do have normal late lower mounts, because at some point this car has had later axles fitted, which would make sense because of course it's already got the later gearbox in there. They are still short axles, nicely, but we do have the angled bottom here, and at the top it's straight. We have a slight mismatch there, but it's not going to matter because the air suspension kit we're fitting is going to work absolutely perfect. And also, rather than doing the regular spring plates that we normally do, we're actually fitting up a set of our super spring plates, which these are only partially assembled at the moment. There's a large bolt here, a very nice Teflon, Kevlar lined rose joint or Heim joint for guys in the US in there, rather than using the bushings. That all gets tightened down, the locking ring goes on, it gets bolted through. These are really good for like a performance-based car. So obviously you've got less movement in a Heim joint, rose joint when you would have the stock bushings. Absolute overkill for this car, but they do look very cool. And I always like seeing them when you look, so obviously when the car's on the floor, you look through the inner wing here and you can see them. And I quite like that. I did those because our original spring plate covers for this car were rusted through and you can't get good replacement ones too easily. So I thought, whatever, have the excuse to make a nice set of our super spring plates up. So yeah, regular sort of kit you've seen us fit many times over on different cars. Obviously slightly earlier top mounts, normal lower mounts. These are our bags, these are our shocks, stiffener bars, crossbar, top mount, chassis clamps, shock mounts. One of these got powder coated black. I don't know why, it just ended up being powder coated black, but whatever. Lower mounts, spring plates, that's basically the whole kit. Other than of course the fasteners, but we'll just fit those as we go along. So, as of right now, I'm fitting the wheels because we're actually about to put this car on the floor finally. All the suspension's done, the management's in, everything's piped up, the engine runs. Obviously, we've got no interior, but that's not going to stop us putting it on the floor, taking it outside, and giving it a wash. And of course, airing it out and seeing what it looks like. Now, the rear wheels, I've gone to start fitting these, realised the bolts are way too long. Got to shorten all those down or else it'll just sort of wear everything off inside the drums and it'll fall apart and break. So thank you very much for watching. More videos on this one to come, just tidying, finishing it up, because we're 90% of the way there now. But yeah, yet again, thank you very much for watching. Give us a like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff. Always very, very appreciated. So thank you.